My name is Cassandra Bell, and I was supposed to inherit my grandfather's house, the one place in the world that truly felt like mine. But on the day my sister got engaged, my father announced he was giving it away as a wedding gift to her. The betrayal came from all directions, my parents, my sister, even the law. But trust me, they have no idea who they just tried to steal from. I'm not giving up without a war. Before we dive in, where are you watching from today? Drop your city or country in the comments. I love knowing where our little community is growing from. And if you've ever been betrayed by family, I want to hear about that too. The thing about betrayal is it doesn't always come dressed like an enemy. Sometimes it wears a familiar face, a father's voice, a mother's silence, or a sister's smile that's just a little too rehearsed. It was a Sunday, the kind that tried to pretend it was peaceful, sunlight pouring through the windows of our Tulsa home, the faint scent of my mother's rosemary roast lingering in the air. I was visiting for dinner, mostly out of obligation. My relationship with my parents had been strained ever since Grandpa passed. He left me his house, not because I asked for it, but because I lived there, took care of it, and of him. I earned it. My sister Amanda was perched on the love seat, glowing from her recent engagement like the sun couldn't compete. And of course, she looked picture-perfect in her pastel sweater set, her ring catching the light with every movement of her carefully manicured hand. Dad cleared his throat. "We have a little announcement," he said, glancing at Mom. She gave him a small, expectant nod. I knew that tone. That calculated pause he used when he was about to make a decision sound like a blessing. "We've decided to give the Brookstone property to Amanda," he said. "As her wedding gift. It's time she and Ryan start their life together with a solid foundation. It's for the family." For a moment, I genuinely thought I'd misheard him. "You're giving her my house," I said slowly, my voice cutting through the air like a blade. "The one Grandpa left to me." "It's not yours, Cassandra," my mother said, her tone clipped. "Not really, it's a family asset." My chest tightened. "I have the deed. It's in my name." Dad waved a hand as if that was a technicality. "Your name was temporary. It was always meant to benefit the whole family." Amanda stayed quiet, brushing invisible lint off her sleeve like this didn't concern her. "You can't just give it away," I snapped, standing up. My hands were shaking. That house was Grandpa's final gift to me. I took care of him when no one else would. I missed college weekends, skipped dates, worked double shifts so I could afford to keep it standing, and now you're handing it over like a housewarming present? Mom's eyes flashed. "Don't speak to your father like that." I turned to her. "He's not giving away a set of dishes, Mother. He's giving away my life." And then came the slap. Open palms swift across my face. The sting bloomed instantly, not just on my skin but somewhere deeper, older. The room went still. Even Amanda gasped. I looked at my mother, really looked at her, and saw not disappointment but calculation. The same cold steel behind her eyes that I'd learned to ignore for years. I pressed my hand against my burning cheek, pulse roaring in my ears. The silence grew so loud I could hear my heart breaking. I picked up my bag. No one said a word as I walked out the door. But as it slammed shut behind me, I knew one thing. They had just declared war. I didn't sleep that night. I lay awake in my childhood bedroom, now repurposed into a dusty storage closet, and stared at the ceiling, my face still warm where Mom had slapped me. I kept replaying it in my head. The calm cruelty in Dad's voice, Amanda's silence, that one sentence. "It's for the family." What kind of family steals from you with a smile? By morning, I'd packed up everything I could fit in 2 suitcases and a duffel bag. If they wanted the house, they could have it empty. I wasn't about to fight over space in a place where I wasn't welcome. Not until I figured out what I was really up against. The air outside felt heavier than usual. Maybe it was just the weight in my chest. By the time I pulled up to my house, my fingers were stiff from gripping the steering wheel too tightly. I sat there for a minute, trying to swallow the ache rising in my throat. Then I stepped out. And that's when I saw them. 2 uniformed men standing on the porch. One was adjusting the brim of his cap, the other held a clipboard. I froze. "Can I help you?" I called out, voice already tight with unease. "Ma'am," the taller one said with a kind of bureaucratic neutrality that made my skin crawl. "We're here on a scheduled property transfer enforcement. Name?" "Cassandra Bell," I said cautiously. He flipped a page. "Yep, you're the current occupant of the Brookstone residence," I nodded. "And also the owner. What is this?" "There's been a change in property registration," he said. "Transfer initiated by Mr. Daniel Bell, my father." "This house was deeded to me," I said sharply. "By my grandfather. I've lived here for 5 years." "I understand, ma'am," he replied, but I could tell he didn't. "All we know is what's on file. Your name has been removed from ownership. This is a lawful transfer." "No," I said, a dry laugh escaping. "This is a mistake." The shorter officer stepped up. "If you have documentation, you can contest it legally. But for now, we've been authorized to begin the eviction process." Eviction. The word hit like a punch. "You're making a mistake," I said again, this time pleading. "This house is mine. Please just look at the original deed, 2017, signed by Henry Bell, my grandfather." "We don't have that kind of discretion," the officer said and started walking toward the front door. "You have 20 minutes to gather your things." I blinked. Just like that. No warning, no hearing, no chance to explain. Neighbors began peering out of their windows. Curtains twitched. One woman across the street stood in her yard with a watering can, frozen mid-pour. My ears rang as I stepped inside. The officers followed, not aggressively, but with that blank kind of compliance that's almost worse. Like they weren't human enough to care about what they were dismantling. I moved through the house like a ghost, grabbing what I could: documents, my laptop, photo albums, my grandmother's quilt. The rest I'd have to leave behind. Each drawer I opened felt like tearing away another piece of me. This wasn't just a house. It was the last place Grandpa had laughed. The porch he built with his own hands. The kitchen I cooked in while he told me stories about the Navy. Every corner held a memory, now being boxed up and thrown out like junk mail. Outside, one of the officers stood near the porch, looking uncomfortable as I dragged my bags to the sidewalk. The other changed the lock, my lock. "Where am I supposed to go?" I asked him, my voice quieter now, hollow. He shrugged. "We don't handle that part." That part. The human part. I stood on the curb, my entire life reduced to 3 bags and a tangled mess of questions. Was it legal? Could Dad really transfer a property that wasn't his? How could they erase my name like it was a typo? As the officers climbed back into their van and drove off, I just stood there, numb. A breeze blew through the trees, lifting the edge of the "sold" sign I hadn't even noticed planted in the yard. That's when it hit me. They hadn't just given the house to Amanda. They'd taken it from me. By the time I made it to downtown Tulsa, the sun had started to dip below the skyline, casting long shadows across the concrete. My body moved on autopilot. I had no plan, just a suitcase in each hand and the sound of my own heartbeat pounding like a warning bell in my ears. There was only one place I could think to go. Layla. We hadn't lived in the same zip code in years, but we'd always had this unspoken promise. If things ever got bad, really bad, we'd show up for each other. No questions asked. I hadn't told her about the house yet. I hadn't told anyone. My phone buzzed with a string of missed calls, all from home, but that word no longer meant anything to me. I turned it off and shoved it deep in my coat pocket. When I rang Layla's buzzer, it was almost dark. She answered after the second ring. "Hello, it's me." A pause, then, "Cass." Her voice cracked on the syllable. The intercom buzzed and the door clicked open. By the time I reached her third-floor walk-up, she was standing in the doorway, arms already outstretched. She didn't ask why I looked like I'd been hit by a truck. She didn't demand explanations. She just hugged me. Hard. I didn't cry right away. I wanted to, but all I could do was breathe in the scent of cinnamon and eucalyptus, her forever combination, while my chest tried to remember what it felt like to expand without pain. "Come in," she said softly, leading me inside. "You're staying here." "I don't want to." "You're staying," she repeated. "And you're telling me everything. Eventually." I nodded. My throat was still too tight to form real sentences. Layla's apartment was small, 2 bedrooms, one with a twin bed and a yoga mat, but it felt like sanctuary. Warm, lived in, safe. I sank into her worn gray couch like it was a life raft. She handed me tea in a chipped mug that said, "Better days are coming, they're called Saturday," and sat across from me, legs tucked under her like always. 10 minutes passed in silence before I found the words. "They threw me out," I whispered. Her eyes widened. "My parents, Amanda, they gave away Grandpa's house, my house, and then had the cops show up to force me out." My voice cracked on the word cops. "They said the ownership changed, that my name was taken off, just like that." She set her mug down slowly. "They what?" I nodded. "In front of the whole neighborhood, no warning, no hearing, just this isn't yours anymore. And I know Grandpa left it to me. I took care of him, Layla. Every winter when his arthritis flared up, every month when he forgot to refill his meds, I was there." "Cassandra," she said, her voice shaking with barely contained rage. "I will never forgive them for this." I laughed bitterly. "That makes two of us." We sat in silence again, the kind only old friends can sit in comfortably. Eventually, Layla asked the question that had been hovering in the air since I walked through her door. "So, what now?" I swallowed hard. "I don't know." "Well," she said, "first you're going to rest, then you're going to fight, and if you don't know how, I'll help you figure it out." Her certainty broke something open in me. I looked at her, the girl who once held my hand through our first breakups, who covered for me when I sneaked out to see concerts, who remembered every birthday I ever had, and I felt the tears finally come. Hot, unstoppable, honest. Layla didn't flinch. She just sat there and let me cry. When I finally quieted, she spoke again. "You're going to take it back, that house, your dignity, all of it." I nodded, not because I believed it yet, but because I wanted to. "You're stronger than them," she said. I didn't feel strong. I felt tired. But maybe, with Layla beside me, I could start figuring out what strength looked like. Maybe strength wasn't about how loud you fought, but how long you could hold the truth without dropping it. Maybe tomorrow I'd start figuring out how they managed to steal what was mine. But tonight I was safe. The next morning, the sun filtered through Layla's sheer curtains like it didn't know the world had collapsed the day before. I woke on her couch, limbs stiff from tension and the kind of sleep that barely counts. But something was different. I felt a flicker. Not hope exactly, but the ache of wanting hope. Layla padded into the living room, already dressed in leggings and an oversized t-shirt, 2 mugs of coffee in hand. She handed me one, then sat cross-legged on the carpet like we were in college again. "You ready to talk plans?" I sipped the coffee, grateful for the heat. "You mean like lawyer plans?" She nodded. "You said the deed was in your name, still got a copy." "In my email," I said quickly. "I scanned it back in 2017 after Grandpa passed, along with the will. Then that's where we start." She pulled out her phone. "I know someone, Terrence Price. He's fresh out of law school but sharp as hell. We used to work at the same summer camp. He just opened a small practice here in Tulsa, family and estate law. Do you think he'd actually take something like this?" I already texted him. Of course she had. An hour later, I was standing in a tiny office 2 floors above a bookstore, my palms sweating as I clutched a printed folder of documents from Layla's home printer. Terrence was younger than I expected, early 30s maybe, but his eyes had that focused glint I remembered from the few lawyers I'd met during Grandpa's hospital paperwork days. The kind that scanned every sentence like it was a code. "So," he said, as I slid the papers across his desk, "this is the deed." "Yes." "Transferred to me by Henry Bell in 2017. I paid property taxes, utilities, everything. Then 2 days ago, the police showed up and said the property had been reassigned." Terrence didn't respond right away. He flipped through the pages, then leaned back slowly, his brow furrowing. "This," he said, tapping the paper, "shows clear sole ownership. Not joint, not conditional, sole." I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. "But," he continued, "we'll need to get the current property record from the Tulsa County Registrar to see what's on file now. If there was a change, someone filed a new deed or forged one." He looked up. "And if they did, we'll find it." A strange laugh bubbled in my throat. "Terrence, if you can help me fix this, I'll name my firstborn after you." He grinned. "Make it the middle name, less pressure." He tapped his keyboard, clicking through a county database. "I'm going to request a certified copy of the current deed filing. It should be here in a few business days. In the meantime, I'd suggest writing down everything, every interaction, every conversation about the house. Anything you remember your parents saying. And if you have any emails or texts, save those too. I nodded, mentally rewinding the past year of conversations. The way Mom always called the house, the families, how Amanda kept dropping hints about starting fresh. I'd brushed it off, never imagining they had a plan this sinister. Terrence reached for my folder again. You said there's also a copy of your grandfather's will. I handed it to him. He read silently for a moment, then nodded. This lines up. Deed and will are consistent, and unless something drastic changed after this, I'd say you've got a strong case. Something in my chest shifted like a rusted door creaking open. Thank you, I said softly. Just hearing that I'm not crazy, it helps. Terrence gave me a kind smile. You're not crazy, you're just up against people who thought you wouldn't fight back. I stood to leave, feeling something I hadn't in days, clarity, the kind that doesn't solve everything but sharpens the edges. Layla was waiting outside the office, pacing with her arms crossed. Well, she asked the moment she saw my face. There's a chance, I said, and for the first time I let the words feel real. A real one. She let out a celebratory whoop so loud the guy at the coffee cart jumped. Let's get your house back, Cass. Not just my house, I said, gripping the folder. My dignity. And maybe, just maybe, that's what they didn't count on. The complaint was only 6 pages long, but it felt heavier in my hands than any legal document I'd ever seen. Terrence slid it across the cafe table we were using as our makeshift war room. Unlawful eviction and unauthorized property transfer. We're filing it first thing Monday. I stared at the paper, my name bold at the top. My parents' names beneath it. It looked like fiction, like something out of a legal drama. Only this was real, and it had my whole life behind it. Layla sat across from me, nursing her second espresso and vibrating with the kind of energy I couldn't quite summon. You sure you're ready for this? Terrence asked, his tone softer than usual. I didn't answer right away, because the truth was I wasn't. Not really. I wasn't ready to sit in a courtroom and accuse the people who gave me life of stealing it from me. I wasn't ready to see Amanda's smug face across the aisle or my mother's glare sharpen into something cold enough to cut steel. I wasn't ready for any of it, but I was going to do it anyway. It's not about revenge, I said at last, looking Terrence dead in the eye. It's about what's mine, what they tried to erase like I was nothing. He nodded. That afternoon, I watched him walk into the Tulsa County Courthouse with the complaint tucked under his arm, shoulders squared like he was going to war on my behalf. It was surreal. 3 weeks earlier, I'd been baking banana bread in my kitchen and wondering what kind of tile would look best in the guest bathroom. Now I was suing my parents. By the time the hearing was scheduled, it didn't feel surreal anymore. It felt inevitable. Layla and I sat in her apartment that night, paperwork spread out around us. I stared at my signature on the final page of the complaint, looping and tense like my hand had known what was at stake. I don't know if I'm doing the right thing, I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. She looked up from the stack of notes she was sorting. Do you think your grandfather would want them living in that house? The question stopped me cold. Images rushed through my mind, Grandpa in his flannel robe, whistling while he made eggs, grumbling about politics while tending to the backyard tomatoes, falling asleep mid-story with a crossword on his lap. And me always there, learning, listening, loving. No, I said quietly, he wouldn't. Then you already have your answer. I gave a small, tired nod. The first hearing's in 2 weeks, preliminary review, just to determine if the court will proceed. Layla smirked. They better. Or I'm chaining myself to the courthouse steps. Despite everything, I laughed. A real one. The first since that awful day in the living room. As we packed up for the night, I slid the stamped copy of the complaint into my folder, my name bold at the top, a line drawn clearly underneath. This wasn't just a lawsuit. It was the first line of my defense. The courtroom was colder than I expected, not in temperature, but in tone. Sterile, unforgiving. Like the walls themselves were trained to show no sympathy. I sat beside Terrence at the long, polished table, watching as my parents strolled in like they were attending a PTA meeting, not a legal proceeding. My mother wore pearls. Amanda wore victory in her smile. And my father, well, he looked like a man convinced of his own righteousness. Terrence leaned over. Whatever happens in there, don't react. Not until we've reviewed everything. I nodded, clutching the edge of the table like it was the last thing keeping me grounded. The judge entered, a woman with sharp eyes and an air of no-nonsense authority. She introduced the session, stated the case, then gestured to my parents' attorney, a man I recognized from billboards. He had the easy confidence of someone who'd never heard the word no. He stood. "Your Honor, we submit into evidence an updated will, signed by Henry Bell in October of 2019, stating a joint inheritance between his granddaughters, Cassandra Bell and Amanda Bell. With this document, the transfer of the Brookstone property was both lawful and familial in nature." He handed the document to the bailiff. I felt the blood drain from my face. Terrence remained composed, but I could see his jaw tighten as he flipped through the pages. He slid the copy toward me. It looked real. Grandpa's signature, legal letterhead, even the notary stamp. But something was wrong. I knew that signature. I had seen it 100 times, on birthday cards, on crossword puzzles. It was never that neat. Terrence stood. "Your Honor, we object to the legitimacy of this document. The original will submitted in 2017 designated Cassandra Bell as sole heir to the Brookstone property. This new document appeared only after my client filed suit, and we question its authenticity." The judge nodded. "Duly noted, we'll set a hearing to examine the validity of the will in full." But the damage was already done. The rest of the session blurred, dates scheduled, motions noted, voices echoing like they were underwater. I barely moved until it was over. Outside the courtroom, Terrence pulled me aside. "They blindsided us, but it's not over." "They forged it," I whispered, staring at the paper. "I don't know how yet, but they did." He nodded slowly. "We'll find out how. And when we do, we'll bury them with it." I believed him, but that didn't stop the shake in my hands as I walked through the courthouse doors. Amanda was waiting on the steps, her arms folded. "That was fun," she said, too sweet. "You looked real confident in there, sis." I stared at her. "You knew about this document." "Oh, I helped pick the font," she said with a wink. It was a joke, a cruel one, or maybe not. I turned to walk away, but she added softly, "You're not going to win. They're smarter than you think." I didn't look back, because I already knew something she didn't. I wasn't alone anymore. And no matter how carefully they forged those papers, the truth had fingerprints too. There's a certain kind of silence that creeps in after you've been blindsided, like the hush before a tornado. That's how it felt after the court hearing. I sat on Layla's couch for hours, barely moving, just staring at that revised will like it was a personal obituary. The worst part wasn't that it looked real. It was that for a split second I almost believed it. Because when everyone starts rewriting the truth, even your own memories start to wobble. Layla wouldn't let me spiral long. She was pacing, phone in hand, a woman on a mission. "I'm not letting them rewrite history," she muttered. "You're not losing everything because some coward with a law degree forged a signature." That's when she paused mid-scroll. "Jody. Jody Reed?" I asked, rubbing my eyes. "Paralegal Jody. She's not just a paralegal anymore," Layla grinned. "She's working with a firm in Oklahoma City that eats probate fraud for breakfast." One text later, Jody was on a video call with us, sharp-eyed and already annoyed. "Send me everything," she said, not even waiting for hello. "Deeds, filings, timelines. I want to see the original will scanned. I want to see the one they brought to court. And I want to see the look on Amanda's face when this all comes crashing down." Layla beamed. "Still feisty. Still furious about injustice," Jody replied. "And this smells like 3-week-old shrimp in the sun." The next day, Jody drove up to Tulsa with 2 more surprises, Caleb and Renee. I hadn't seen them since college. Caleb used to help me balance my finances when I was juggling 2 jobs and student loans. Renee once hacked into the university server to recover a lost term paper for me. I trusted them in a way I hadn't trusted anyone in years. "We've got one shot at this," Jody said as we spread documents across Layla's dining table. "The court ruled in favor of your parents because of that will. If we can prove it's forged or even manipulated, this whole thing starts to crumble." Caleb opened his laptop. "We'll run a forensic check on the inheritance record database. Timestamp discrepancies, IP tracebacks, digital fingerprints. If someone tampered with it, they left breadcrumbs. And I'll compare the metadata on the scanned 2017 deed with the revised one." Renee added, already plugging in a flash drive. Grandpa's signature might look legit, but forgers always miss something. Font rendering, layer inconsistencies, keystroke patterns. We'll find it. Wait, how do you all even know how to do this? I asked, overwhelmed. Renee laughed. You think we left college and didn't turn into dangerous nerds? And just like that, the fear that had taken root in my chest began to loosen. We worked for hours. Layla ordered pizza. Jody sketched out a war map on her whiteboard, circles for people, arrows for dates, question marks where the timeline didn't make sense. This entry here, Caleb pointed, shows an inheritance log update from January 8th, 5 months after Henry Bell's will was officially closed. That's impossible, I whispered. He died in October. The probate ended in December. The court issued closure notices. Exactly, Caleb said, but someone accessed it anyway, from a remote IP address in Wasso, Oklahoma, where my parents live. Renee looked up. And they didn't cover their digital tracks well. We've got the IP logs and they trace back to a home router. That's amateur hour. I sat back in my chair, stunned. They really did it. They rewrote my grandfather's last wish like it was a grocery list. They tried to, Jody corrected. But now they're sloppy criminals pretending to be grieving family. I swallowed hard. Why would they go that far? The room fell silent. Layla answered first. Because they thought you wouldn't fight. That night, after everyone left, I sat alone with a notebook in my lap. I listed every moment I'd ever second-guessed myself, every time I'd minimized what they did to keep the peace, every time I'd mistaken control for love. Then I wrote a new sentence beneath all of it. They're about to learn I'm not the weak one. We were so close, I could feel it. The way a thunderstorm feels when your bones ache minutes before the sky opens. Caleb's discovery had cracked something open. A single, damning IP address that linked back to my parents' Wi-Fi network. Renee had cross-checked the timestamps against the official probate closure. Someone had accessed the inheritance system after Grandpa's will was finalized. Jody called it the smoking gun. I've already flagged it with the court, she said, her voice brisk as she scribbled notes into a yellow legal pad. If we get the right motion filed, we can force a digital audit of the entire record. And if that matches the tampered pages they presented at the hearing, I asked. Then it's game over for them, she said. It should have felt victorious. But instead, I felt unsettled, because things were suddenly moving too easily. We needed one more piece of confirmation, the clerk who handled Grandpa's will filing, the one who entered the final data into the Tulsa probate archive. Her name was Jeanine Holt, and according to the online directory, she still worked at the courthouse. I remember her, I said, flipping through Grandpa's old paperwork. She was the one who walked me through the filing process when he passed. Sweet, older lady, silver hair, glasses always slipping down her nose. She could verify if someone reopened the record illegally, Jody said, and maybe even saw who did it. Renee and I drove down to the Tulsa courthouse the next morning, a manila folder between us, hearts pounding with anticipation. But when we reached the records office window, a young clerk looked up with wide eyes. Jeanine, she said, she's not in. Not in for the day, the girl hesitated. She's on leave indefinitely. Renee leaned forward. What kind of leave? I'm not supposed to say, the clerk stammered. But she called in last week and said she wouldn't be returning anytime soon. Did she give a reason? She didn't even pick up her last paycheck, the girl whispered. It's still sitting in the safe. My blood ran cold. We walked out of the building in silence, the sounds of traffic muffled behind the pounding in my ears. Someone got to her, Renee said. It wasn't a question. I stared at the sidewalk, heart hammering. You think they threatened her? Jody's voice came through on speakerphone when we told her. She's either scared, paid off, or both. Either way, it tells us one thing. What? They're watching, she said, and they're getting nervous. I looked up at Renee. That means we're winning. Or getting too close, she said. That night, we met back at Layla's apartment. The energy in the room had shifted. Our little team, once running on caffeine and righteous fury, now moved with quiet urgency. Jody paced. They thought you'd fold after the hearing. They thought the will would be the final blow. But now, we've got document tampering, illegal access, a key witness vanishing. If this were a movie, we'd be halfway to the takedown montage. I don't want to star in a movie, I muttered. I just want my house back. Layla came up beside me. You'll get it, but you won't just get that back. She put a hand on my shoulder. You'll get you back. And I knew she was right. Because even as my world tilted on its axis, something in me had stopped trembling. They could erase files. They could manipulate dates. They could scare people into silence, but they couldn't erase what I knew. And soon, everyone else would know it too. The envelope was thick, ivory with gold edges and calligraphy that looked handwritten. Amanda had always been extra like that. It arrived at Layla's apartment, slipped into the mail slot like a cruel joke. No return address. Just my name in swirling cursive, Cassandra Bell, and inside, a card that sparkled when it hit the light. You are cordially invited to the pre-wedding dinner of Amanda Bell and Jardmore Saturday at 6:00 p.m. Grand Ballroom. The Evermore Hotel formal attire required. I read it twice before bursting out laughing. Layla walked in mid-cackle, clutching her smoothie. Please tell me that's not what I think it is. Oh, it is, I said, holding up the invitation like a piece of evidence. Unbelievable, she muttered. They throw you out of your house and then invite you to toast the theft. What's next? A thank you for your trauma gift bag. I think this is supposed to be the part where I politely decline, I said, setting the card down. But, I smiled, a slow, deliberate one, the kind that starts not from joy but from clarity. I think I'll go. Layla choked on her drink. Excuse me, I met her eyes. I'm tired of playing by their script, smiling, backing down, being the bigger person. Amanda wants to flaunt her victory in a glittery hotel ballroom. Fine. Let her, but she doesn't know I'm bringing a gift of my own. A gift? Layla asked cautiously. I walked to my laptop and opened the latest email from Jody. Subject, audit request accepted body. The court approved the forensic audit. Investigation into the will and digital inheritance logs will be underway by Friday. My fingers hovered over the trackpad. They think they've already won, but this isn't over, not even close. You sure you're ready to see them again? No, I admitted. But I'm ready to stop hiding. I pulled the invitation back toward me, studying the gold script. It was so perfect, so curated, so hollow. The days leading up to the dinner blurred into strategy sessions and legal briefings. Terrence prepped our final filings while Renee and Caleb dug deeper into Amanda's online activity. They discovered that the engagement announcement and the sudden house reassignment occurred within a week of each other, suspiciously close. Too close. Amanda knew, Caleb said. Or at least benefited. She's not innocent in this, I murmured, but I wasn't going to shout it, I was going to show it. On the day of the dinner, I stood in front of the mirror in Layla's bedroom wearing a fitted navy dress, simple, classic, power in fabric form. Dang, Layla said, leaning in the doorway. If looks could sue. Let's hope they don't have to, I said, zipping my clutch. I arrived at the Evermore Hotel 5 minutes early. Just enough time to watch Amanda greet guests near the entrance like a politician on a campaign trail. My father stood behind her, nodding with forced warmth, his arm around Mom's waist like a public performance. When Amanda spotted me, her smile froze, then returned just slightly thinner. Cass, she cooed, I didn't think you'd come. Oh, I said, stepping into the light. I wouldn't miss it for the world. Her eyes flicked to the slim leather folder I carried. What's that? She asked. I smiled. Let's just call it a preview. And with that, I walked inside, past crystal chandeliers and champagne flutes, past the gossiping aunts and curious cousins. I wasn't here to toast. I was here to remind them the reckoning was coming. Weddings are strange things. You'd think they're about love, but most of the time they're about performance. And Amanda's wedding, it was Broadway. Held at a sprawling estate just outside Tulsa, the grounds were dripping with florals and camera crews. White roses lined the walkways. Violinists played in soft, synchronized waves, and servers passed hors d'oeuvres no one was eating because everyone was too busy admiring themselves. I stood near the edge of the garden, staring at the setup like I'd wandered onto the set of a movie. But this time, I wasn't the extra quietly holding a tray in the background. This time, I was the plot twist. Layla stood beside me in a midnight blue suit, fierce and focused. Behind us, Jody adjusted the zipper on her sleek black folder stuffed with documents. Caleb held the backup copies. Renee was coordinating with the private investigator who just delivered the digital audit from the court system. Sealed, time-stamped, irrefutable. And Marta, Jody's senior partner, a powerhouse attorney with a voice like velvet and the strategic brain of a chess grandmaster, stood calm, collected, and terrifying. "You ready?" Marta asked, smoothing her blazer. I looked across the grounds. Amanda was mid-toast, microphone in hand, beaming like a queen at her coronation. My parents flanked her, my mother raising a glass like she hadn't once slapped me across the face to silence me. I took a breath. "Ready!" The ballroom doors were open to the garden, the marble floor shining under rows of chandeliers. Guests buzzed with laughter and camera flashes. Then came the moment. The doors, us, walking in, 5 across. The music didn't stop, not at first. Not until Amanda turned mid-sentence and saw me. Her champagne flute paused halfway to her lips. My father's face blanched. My mother looked like she'd swallowed a lemon whole. I held my head high, walking to the center of the room like I belonged there. Because I did. That house had paid for this wedding. Those stolen signatures bought these roses. And this moment was mine. Amanda's voice crackled over the mic. "What are you doing?" Marta stepped forward, her heels echoing against the marble like a war drum. "My name is Marta Lewis, representing Cassandra Bell," she said to the crowd. "We're here today to deliver a formal notice of investigation regarding fraud, perjury, and unlawful property seizure." Whispers shot through the crowd like firecrackers. My father stepped forward. "You have no right to crash this." "I have every right," I said, louder than I meant to. "That house was mine, and you knew it." The crowd stilled. Amanda's face drained of all color. Jody handed Marta the binders. One for Amanda, one for my father, one for the wedding planner, oddly enough, who looked like she might faint. "These are copies of our digital audit," Marta said coolly. "They include timestamps showing illegal post-probate edits, forged document trails, and login records tied directly to your household's IP address." My father tried to speak. Marta raised one hand, not rudely, just firmly. "The forensic report has been filed with the Tulsa County Court and accepted for review. Any property transferred during this investigation is now frozen." Amanda's hands were trembling. "Is this a joke?" she asked. I looked at her, really looked. And for the first time, she wasn't smug, she wasn't defiant, she was scared. "No," I said. "This is the gift I promised." The security team, seeing the binders, approached slowly, unsure who was actually in the wrong. My father turned to one of the officers stationed at the event. "I want them arrested. This is private property." But the officer, clearly already briefed, shook his head. "This is now a court matter. We've been instructed not to interfere." And just like that, the music stopped. Literally. The violinists froze mid-note. Guests stared like they just witnessed a soap opera unfold in real time. I turned to Amanda one last time. "You could have told the truth," I said softly. "But you liked the fantasy more." Then I walked out. Not crying, not broken. Free. Exactly 1 month after Amanda's wedding came to a spectacular, scandal-laced halt, I was back in the Tulsa County Courthouse, this time wearing a tailored blazer and calm-like armor. The courtroom looked the same, but I wasn't. And this time we weren't just arguing. We were delivering evidence. The judge, a woman with steady eyes and a zero-tolerance tone, scanned the papers Marta submitted. "This digital audit," she said, tapping the binder, "was conducted by a state-certified forensic team, yes." "Yes, Your Honor," Marta confirmed. "It outlines unauthorized changes made to Henry Bell's will after his probate file had been closed by the county." The judge looked over her glasses at my parents. My mother was stone. My father sat stiff, chin slightly up, the way he used to when Grandpa would scold him and he didn't want to admit he was wrong. Amanda was absent. "I also have 3 separate entries made into the county record system," Marta continued, "from an IP address registered to Walter and Cynthia Bell's home Wi-Fi router, matching the dates corresponding to the forged revisions." She passed the evidence to the bailiff. "Additionally," she said, "we have notarization analysis from 2 independent handwriting experts, both of whom confirm that the signature on the revised will does not match Henry Bell's previous legal documents." There was a beat of silence. The judge turned back to the bench and read quietly for what felt like a lifetime. I sat still. I didn't need to plead anymore. The facts were doing it for me. At last, she spoke. This court finds that the revised will submitted by the defendants is fraudulent. The original inheritance document naming Cassandra Bell as sole heir is hereby reinstated and recognized as the final and legal version. My throat clenched. She continued, voice even. In light of the fraudulent activity and perjury committed under oath, Walter and Cynthia Bell are ordered to pay restitution fees as well as court costs incurred by the plaintiff. Amanda Bell is hereby removed from all claims to the Brookstone property. My mother didn't move. My father opened his mouth, then closed it. The gavel hit the block like thunder. It was done. I didn't cry. But the second I stepped outside the courthouse, the air felt different. Lighter. Sharper. Like everything had been scraped clean. And then, to my surprise, Amanda was waiting by the fountain. She wore no makeup, no perfect blowout, just jeans, a loose sweater, and tired eyes. "I didn't know," she said quietly. "I mean, not everything." I didn't say anything. "They told me you were going to sell the house, that you didn't care about it, that Grandpa changed his mind." She laughed once bitterly. "I was stupid." "Yes," I said. "You were." She looked down. "They lied to me too." I let the words sit between us. Then, "So now you know what it feels like." Amanda looked up sharply, but there was no fight left in her. "I'm sorry," she said, not forced, not hollow, just small. I gave her a long, quiet look, and then I nodded, not for her, for me, because holding on to rage had kept me alive, but letting go would let me live. She walked away without asking for anything else, and I didn't stop her. 2 years later, the house didn't just look different. It felt different. The creaky floorboards had been replaced with reclaimed oak, warm and golden. The faded wallpaper in the hallway was gone, replaced with soft gray paint and framed photos of people who showed up when it mattered. The kitchen, once outdated and cramped, now gleamed with new counters and wide windows. I'd knocked down a wall myself, something I'd once thought impossible. Turns out, I was capable of more than surviving betrayal. I was capable of building something better after it. Outside, the late spring sun painted the sky in honey-colored streaks. I was on my knees in the dirt, planting the last row of sunflower seeds just like Grandpa taught me. He used to say, "If you want to grow anything strong, you've got to bury it deep. Let it feel the dark before it reaches the light." I used to think he was only talking about gardening. Now I knew better. Layla's laugh rang out from the porch. She was curled up in the swinging chair, holding a lemonade and scrolling through her phone. "Caleb sent another meme," she called. "Something about AI lawyers with capes." I wiped my hands on my jeans and stood, brushing soil from my knees. "Tell him he's still not forgiven for trying to put pineapple on my birthday pizza." "Forgiveness takes time," she said solemnly. "And therapy." We both laughed. This house, my house, had become something else entirely. Not just a symbol of what was taken from me, but a daily reminder of what I reclaimed. I didn't just win it back in court. I earned it back in every way that mattered, through grit, through grace, through refusing to let what they did define who I was going to be. Inside, my work laptop blinked to life. Cybersecurity consultant, fraud detection specialist, digital investigator. I still couldn't believe I'd landed there. Jody had introduced me to her firm's network right after the case closed. I thought it would be a temp job, but the more I learned about digital trails and electronic forgery, the more I realized I was good at this. And I cared about it. A lot. Because I knew what it felt like to have your truth twisted by paper and signatures. Now I helped people find their way back to the facts when their families, or exes, or enemies tried to bury them in manipulation. I became what I once needed, proof that you could fight back and win. My Thursday night mentoring group was growing too. I started small, just me and 3 college-age women from Tulsa who had inheritance questions and difficult relatives. Now we met every week in a shared workspace downtown. 10 girls, snacks, and the one rule, no minimizing your own experience. I taught them about boundaries, about digital footprints, about the difference between keeping the peace and losing yourself. And every time one of them stood up and said, "No, that's not okay," I saw a bit of myself, older, sharper, more certain, reflected in their strength. Amanda never reached out again after her quiet apology outside the courthouse. But months later, I received a small envelope postmarked from Denver. No return address, just my name printed cleanly. Inside was a single card. No note, no message. Just a sketch of a sunflower in pencil, delicate, hand-drawn, shaded with care. I didn't call her, but I didn't throw it away either. I placed it in a glass frame in the hallway, beside a photo of Grandpa in his garden, grinning beneath a floppy sun hat and a smear of dirt on his cheek. Because some wounds don't close with revenge. They close with understanding, even if it comes quietly. That evening, Renee and Caleb stopped by with coffee and gossip. Jody FaceTimed in from a conference in D.C., wearing pearls and a power suit that screamed national litigation. Layla stayed late, falling asleep on the couch halfway through a movie. It was ordinary. It was beautiful. As the house quieted, I stepped outside onto the porch. The air smelled like fresh soil and lemon balm. Fireflies blinked in the tall grass, and the stars above shone through the darkness without apology. I wrapped a shawl around my shoulders and sat on the swing, listening to the creak of the chain, the wind through the trees. I used to think winning meant getting the house back, but it was more than that. I got me back. No more apologizing for taking up space. No more shrinking for the comfort of people who only loved me when I was useful. Now, I chose peace that didn't require my silence. Now, I chose family that chose me back.